Welcome to Interesting Choices, the show where we find media, movies, TV, and other things that make weird choices, and then we talk about them and tell you if they're worth your time. I'm Sky.
I'm Kate.
Hi, Kate.
Hey, Sky.
This week, we're talking about a short-lived TV show from the 70s called Supertrain.
Yeah, Supertrain. This show is 40 years old. Almost 41, I think, now.
Yeah. It really is of its time in a lot of ways.
It is. It's the same age as me. It's the same age as me. And that makes me feel real weird.
I don't know. I mean, if I saw you in the TV show, I would guess that the TV show is 40 and not you, so.
Unlike the show, I have had a chance to grow and change and adapt to the times where this is a snapshot of a real period in American history.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also another first for us. It's the first TV show that had more than one episode.
It had a whole 9 episodes, including the 2-hour-long pilot.
I watched all of them, except for the very last episode. It's kind of a comfort foodie show.
It kind of feels like a Love Boat. From the episodes that I watched, the Supertrain itself is the central concept around which these little tiny stories happen.
It definitely feels like someone said, why don't we do Love Boat? One of the main differences being that it's a train, but also that in Love Boat, that was the name of the show, but the ship was called the USS Pacific Princess or something. And in the show, they actually just call it Supertrain, and they say it a lot.
They say it completely without irony. They're just like, Supertrain, Supertrain, Supertrain.
We have to catch this criminal to uphold the honor of Supertrain. To be fair, it's a cool-looking train, though.
It is a cool-looking train. It's basically Snowpiercer, but what if Snowpiercer were not a horrible crushing system?
What if instead it had shag carpeting and a discotheque and a swimming pool?
This show has some of the funkiest music.
If it didn't reuse music over near the end, I was getting a little tired of it, but it wasn't bad. It was pretty fun to listen to most of the time.
Yeah, when I first started watching it, I expected kind of like a Dallas sort of like big score type thing to go with this grandiosity of this super train for rich people. But it just opens up with just like straight funk, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, a lot of brassy disco, a lot of funk, especially in the actual discotheque, which features in pretty much every episode. They almost got through one without having it, but then they had a quick one shot.
They got to get the usage out of that light up floor. So let's talk about the Supertrain itself. It is this very large, fantastical Epcot monorail looking locomotive front part. And then the rest of the cars have a variety of things that you would find on a cruise ship. It's basically a cruise ship on rails. As you say, like the Love Boat. So the amenities it's got, let's list them.
Shopping boutiques.
Hairdresser.
Sauna.
Swimming pool.
Discotheque.
Gym attached to the sauna.
At least 2 different dining areas.
At least 1, maybe multiple bars.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there were at least 2 bars. One of them had, the big window behind the bartender so you could see people swimming. It was like right next to the swimming pool, which features in a couple episodes, oddly enough. It's got full straight up like hotel suites, like with a living room and a separate bedroom. It's got 1 room kind of studio rooms. It's got broom closets for people who don't have a lot of money. Observation deck. A nuclear reactor.
Yeah, it's a nuclear powered, steam driven train.
I really loved the way the chairman introduced it in the pilot episode. He was just like, we're going to build an atom-powered steam turbine train.
This whole thing is the pet project of this eccentric billionaire who got a government grant to build the rail transportation of the future.
Yes, Amtrak's monopoly over rail travel is no longer absolute, thanks to Supertrain.
And so his plan was to build this atomic monstrosity of a train that can go from New York to LA in 36 hours.
Which apparently, according to the wiki, and at least with my own experience, isn't really that super fast, even though it's supposed to be a high-speed rail system.
I think that distance is maybe 3,500, 4,000 miles? Hi, Future Kate here. It's about 2,800 miles by car, if you're wondering.
At least according to the wiki, that distance for 36 hours means the train is just going about 80 miles an hour, which is slower than Amtrak's Acela Express.
It's a real good use of their nuclear power.
It's all in a nuclear reactor cross country multiple times.
You get the idea that the people that made this show didn't actually understand how trains worked.
Yeah, there's a lot of elevators on this train, which, to be fair, there are some on regular trains, but it's also like this train is supposed to be bigger than a regular train, but it's really just wider. It's about the same height as a regular train.
I've never seen a train car go more than like 2 stories.
Yeah.
I think it would affect the aerodynamics after.
Oh, we forgot to mention the library and the medical center.
If you told me that Supertrain became Snowpiercer after whatever apocalypse happened, I'd be like, okay, sure.
I believe it.
This experience is set up as a luxury thing for very rich people.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everybody, which seems kind of weird, but they straight up mention in one of the episodes that the main thing that keeps them running is government subsidies.
Which is wild considering how much these people put into this entire experience, right? Like there's a full casino on board where people routinely lose millions of dollars.
In one of the episodes, they actually host the World Poker Tournament on live television, which is pretty interesting. Yeah, they got like some sort of suite of broadcast and transmission equipment on board for receiving and sending television info.
I guess let's just start with the pilot and then we'll go from there.
You just sort of jump in, as we said before, with the chairman addressing a board of a fake company saying that they're going to build a big train. And then 22 months later, there's a big train.
He's kind of a Walt Disney meets the guy from Snowpiercer meets Sir Hammerlock from Borderlands meets Colonel Sanders. He's just like all these like rich tycoon stereotypes rolled into one.
Yeah, the waxed mustache and beard, the whole schmear.
He doesn't have a monocle, but I imagine him with a monocle.
I could easily misremember him having a monocle at any point in time.
I like when he's announcing this. He's like, we're going to build a super train. It's going to be great. And the board's like, You're
insane.
Yeah, you're insane.
I think one guy actually says you're going to run this company into the ground.
And he's like, I'll be dead in 5 years, so I don't care. I'm going to unveil my super train. And then he pulls his curtain off of this big thing. And it's
artist rendition.
Yeah, it's like a gilded frame artist rendition of the engine of the super train, the locomotive part. And it's super goofy.
It kind of almost reminds me if someone took the Battlestar Galactica, lopped off the engine nacelles, and turned that into a train after they coated it with like a mirror finish.
Or if you made a DeLorean into a train.
Yeah.
Cut to 22 months later, and this project is well underway. It's like launch day, and we sweep through the super train, and we meet all of the crew who are busily getting things ready for the arrival of, what is his name? Sir Hammerlock and all the passengers.
Oh, Thornton. He's there for that episode, and then they mention him in one of their episodes, and that's it.
You get to see some of his grandchildren randomly multiple times.
One is, I think, in this episode specifically, the pilot.
When I started watching this, the episode that was on YouTube was very low quality. The sound was okay, but it was hard to see anything for the first half of it. And so as they were introducing all of the people, I was like, that's a talking block, and that's a bunch of squiggles, and I have no idea who these people are.
I'm not going to say I now know what it feels like to have face blindness, but I feel like I get somewhat of the idea.
Yeah. So the staff that I can remember are the main conductor of the super train.
Yeah, the crotchety dean of the whole operation.
He's just like some old white dude. There is this like cool black guy, the head porter, I guess.
Later on in the series, he becomes the head of customer relations, which was pretty cool, I thought.
There's like the bartender guy who likes to work out.
Well, there's the two workout people. There's the hairdresser guy, which I really wish we could have seen more of him because he was just hilarious in like the 3 seconds he's on screen.
He's stereotypically very sassy, very gay. The first time you see him, he kind of like does hairdryer guns at someone.
He's got like literal holsters for them. Like he's got a whole gunslinger rig for it set up with like a disco top, like he's got the shirt buttoned down to the third button and then the gold chains and then the fur on the chest. Like he's just ridiculous.
Honestly, I can't remember any of the other people. There's like one guy that is always trying to get out of having to make out with the president's granddaughter.
Yeah, that was head of customer relations, Dave Noonan. She just sort of latches onto him. That's like the C story for the pilot, is him trying not to get involved with the head of the company's granddaughter.
There are so many stories in this pilot. It was overwhelming at the beginning because I was like, I don't know who any of these people are and I don't know who to care about. And then eventually it all coalesces. But yeah, the first 15 minutes are just a whirlwind.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Each story has like 4 or 5 principal players before we finally start to have everything congeal into like a cohesive narrative.
The main story of the pilot revolves around a bunch of the passengers.
And that's true of every episode, pretty much. A lot of the runtime is given over to guest stars. I think that's probably part of the reason this didn't make it, because it was really expensive to make. But yeah, we've got A plot, which is a guy named Mike Post and his boss. She's an agent and she's trying to get her client into a movie, but her client's husband hates the director because he keeps thinking that the director is trying to make a move on his wife. And then on top of that, we have a couple who the husband is just an absolute trash bag of a human being.
We should put up a bunch of content warnings at this point because this is a show that was made in the late 70s and has some pretty deeply misogynistic themes in it. It's got a lot of casual racism. It's got violence against women. There's a lot here. And that relationship was the hardest one to watch, the woman and her husband.
Especially because it was like such a stereotypical one of that mold. He's very obviously like really abusive, and she very obviously is like, no, he actually really loves me. It's exactly that, and it's just so hard to watch.
Someone read Streetcar and was like, let's do one of those. He's even wearing the like A shirt and suspenders, right? Like if you wanted to point to anybody on the train who was a domestic abuser, that would be the man. Yeah,
and anytime he's on screen, he's either got a drink in one hand, a cigar in one hand, or both.
Yeah, and he kind of has the haircut of the guy from No Country for Old Men, so you know he's a villain.
Yeah. The agent's assistant, Mike Post, bumps into the wife and they sort of have a meet cute. He knocks over her magazines. He makes a comment about her putting her kid through college, I guess, by selling magazine subscriptions. She was just grabbing a bunch of magazines because she wanted to learn more about avocados because they're going to California.
They do really well in setting up the fact that she's trapped in this relationship, sometimes literally trapped in her cabin because her controlling husband won't let her out. But she manages to get out and encounter Mike Post and his like weird cowboy friend.
Played by Don Meredith, former football player, sports announcer, dandy Don Meredith.
There's a lot of good flirting. You can really see her starting to come out of her shell a little bit around Mike. Even though he's kind of predatory in a lot of ways, he still comes off as the more sympathetic of her suitors somehow. So there's the romantic subplot between those two. There's Mike's subplot where he's trying to please his boss in order to secure a loan that she's going to give him.
He is in hot water. He owes a lot of money to bad people.
And once he gets off the train, she is going to give him the money so he can pay back whoever he owes.
Basically, his job is to run interference for the actress's husband so that her agent, his boss, can get her a part in this guy's next big picture. The director is played by George Hamilton, noted Hugh and Cheez-It.
Yeah, he always has a spray tan or something. I don't know. He's a weird shade of person.
Yeah. And there's just a ton of other throwaway characters that get named and we never see them again except for one guy who's played by Fred the Hammer Williamson. If you watch genre movies at all, you know who that is.
Nope.
He's been in a lot of stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, he plays a former football player in the episode.
This is the era of actors and celebrities that I don't super know very well. The 80s is kind of my wheelhouse because that's when I grew up. And when those people got washed up, they ended up in things in the 90s. And so that's how I know a lot of people. But like most of these people were long washed up before I started caring about them.
Yeah, I did some research. I knew about Fred Williamson before. They didn't have his nickname in the Wikipedia, so it didn't hit me right away, but I knew of him. I knew of George Hamilton. And I mean, a lot of these people are people that I would have known if someone had put it another way. For instance, Mike Post is played by Steve Lawrence of Steve and Edie fame, the singing duo.
Yeah.
I don't see anything about them being related. I don't know.
Okay. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the background, there are shady things afoot.
Yeah, they keep running into a very shady character with shades and a black suit. A very sharp black suit. But I thought it was pretty funny what happened with him.
But he doesn't really become important until after the Supertrain launches. You see a shot of the inside of Mike Post's cabin where someone is setting up the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
A briefcase bomb, someone with gloves on is setting up something, locking it, leaving it in his cabin, and then, suspense.
We have the ticking time bomb.
Mm-hmm. This is all while he's out flirting with wife lady and trying to do his job. Basically, just having regular people problems.
Yeah, and it is very discotheque.
Literally. There is a big old discotheque that they go to a lot in this show.
Yeah, eventually he goes back and he's about to open the briefcase and we get just that brief from the music where he's like, this isn't mine. He just gives it to the porter, George Boone.
Yeah, he's like, someone left this in my cabin, but it's not mine, so I'm just going to give it to you. Find out who this belongs to, and you take care of it. More flirting happens, more other hijinks happen. This is a point where Hammerlock's granddaughter comes aboard and the head of customer service is like, sees her go into the reserved cabin for Sir Hammerlock. And he's like, excuse me, there's been some sort of mistake. You're not supposed to be here. She's like, actually, I'm his granddaughter and I am supposed to be here.
And then she just kicks it into high gear.
Yeah, she immediately just starts like trying to seduce this
guy.
Yeah, like just average dude.
Like, it was funny just because he's such a blah character. Like I get the conflict they're trying to set up, but I don't understand why him.
It's a little unbelievable. I could see it if she were a little younger and she was just like a rich, spoiled brat who just enjoyed messing with the help and wanting to destroy their career for fun.
But she seems genuinely attracted to him.
She's genuinely attracted to him. She's like an older lady, age appropriate for this man who's like in his early 40s probably. So she's just like into him and he's like, I can't date the boss's granddaughter, but she's throwing herself at me constantly.
He almost goes for it, but then they get walked in on. And then Flood, the conductor, lays down the laws. Like, if you touch her, I will throw you off the train.
So then it becomes a recurring gag, this little bit of levity that they can throw in randomly when the A and B plots get too serious.
Yeah, they get caught in an elevator together. They get shoved together in tight hallways, the whole deal.
While the wife is like taking a bit of time outside of the cabin, her husband doesn't want to leave the cabin. He is content to hang out in his sleeveless tank top thing, suspenders, just being angry in his cabin, smoking cigars.
He's in the angry dome.
Yeah. She's like, but everyone's having a party. Everyone's having a good time. I'm going to go out. I'm just going to enjoy myself. That takes a lot of strength from her to just defy her husband. But he doesn't want to go out because he doesn't want to be recognized. They
established pretty early on with a couple offhand lines that he may also be in some sort of trouble. He has a different face now than he used to, I believe was specifically the line. But yeah, she runs into Mike Post again.
And there's a little bit more flirting. He does a call back to the magazines. His newsy cap, the wingman, is hanging out there. And they're hanging out on the caboose end of the train.
The observation deck balcony area. Boone comes up with the suitcase that he had earlier. And he's like, this doesn't belong to anybody. You could have it, I guess.
Mike Post, being the curious guy he is holding it over the back railings for some reason. He was like about to open it and he actually undid the clasp. But then there was like a commotion and whoops, he dropped it and it just fell off the back and bounced a couple times on the rail.
And then it blows up, but wife lady is the only one who sees it.
Yeah.
I believe her name is Cindy. Yes.
Yeah, Cindy's the only one that sees it. No one hears it. And so she's like, that thing definitely blew up. And everyone's like, you're a lady. You're just imagining things. There's a lot of not believing her, which is super frustrating. Or they're like trying to gaslight her and being like, it was probably literally a gas explosion.
Some poor town's gas main blew up. You're crazy.
It does lodge a seed of doubt into Mike Post's head.
A seed which grows into a mighty oak when he gets locked into the sauna. A mighty oak of doubt.
He recalls back to the people that he owes money to, and he's like, oh, maybe they would try to send someone off me. That's weird. But it's probably nothing. And his friend's like, don't worry about it. That was just weird. Let's go to the sauna. Let's have fun in the sauna.
How can you pay them back if you're dead? Let's go schwitz.
So they go and have a little boys chat in the sauna. Outside, there's a big workout dude there working out. There's a lot of weird leering shots of women doing aerobics in this part. Mm-hmm. These two guys are steaming, and the sneaky gloved villain comes along and loosens the doorknob on the outside and cranks up the heat.
One of the weirder moments when they start feeling it get hotter, Mike's understandably worried, but his friend's like, no, it's supposed to become unbearably hot.
But eventually it gets to be too much for them, and they try the door. Doorknob comes off in Mike's hand, and he is understandably freaked out.
They start pounding on the door. They're screaming. Nobody can hear them.
They try to beat on the door, but they end up hurting themselves. And Mike's like, dude, we got to get out. And his friend's like, I'm just going to give up. I'm just going to put this towel on my head and just accept my fate. And Mike sits down too. They're just like, we're not going to do anything, I guess. We tried for 5 minutes, and I guess we'll just accept dying in here together.
He died as he lived, a baked ham.
Thankfully, Noonan comes by.
And he sees there's people frantically trying to get out of the sauna while workout guys got his back to the door pumping some iron. He's focusing on them gains.
He chastises workout bro and then is like, hey,
should people be in there that long?
And I think there was like some sort of quasi homophobia going on there with the workout guy where he's like, guys shouldn't be doing that in the steam room.
What
together.
Are you doing in there? Get out of there.
But then they're like, oh wait, no, those mans are about to die. We should go rescue them.
Wait, no, they're dying. Oh.
It's a really anticlimactic rescue.
Yeah, they just pried the door open, and Boone makes a crack about would either of them care for some ice water.
This cements in Mike Post's head that yes, okay, someone is definitely trying to kill him. He's been seeing this suspicious looking guy.
The man in the shades.
He's wearing like a black button-up shirt and jacket with like a white tie.
Very stereotypical gangster type look.
Or like a rocker guy.
Yeah. It really depends on the haircut. Whichever haircut you got really sends the kind of vibe for that outfit.
This guy has always been kind of in Mike's peripheral, and he can't seem to escape him. And he's like, oh, this guy's definitely the guy that's been sent to kill me.
And he manages to convince his buddy, Rick, and Cindy that this guy's up to some shenanigans and they have to get him off the train somehow.
This guy's definitely going to kill him, but he doesn't really want to talk about why or that it is actually something that he's afraid of. All these times where there were attempts on his life, like nothing actually was reported to the staff. It was all like, oops, weird accident. And the staff was all like, oh, this is our maiden voyage. That steam room probably broke on its own. We'll comp you. Just don't make a ruckus. We'll comp you.
I don't remember when it happens within the timeline of things, but I distinctly remember them gathered around talking. The begloved assailant sticking their hand out with a silencer and just missing repeatedly with the gun, and then that being retreating into the darkness.
Yes. They're in the hallway, and it's Christy, Mike, and his bro. They're all having a discussion about like, this guy, and I don't know, we don't feel safe. And Noonan comes up with like a big steamer trunk, and he's like, is this yours, Mike? And the steamer trunk is what blocks the bullets. And because it's a perfectly silent gun, no one even notices that an attempt was made on his life.
But yeah, they concoct probably the dumbest plan to get him off the train.
It was not a good plan. It was a very ridiculous plan.
It's a very standard plan. It's just their distraction was like the dumbest thing ever.
So the Supertrain, it is making this one stop in this town somewhere
I think it was Texas.
To have some sort of weird celebration. There's going to be some sort of performances, festivities. Someone's going to make a speech, I guess.
Yeah.
Clams are going to happen. I don't know.
Clam bake in Texas. I thought that was a New England thing, but whatever.
I mean, people have clams all over. We have clams. I could go catch some clams and we can bake some clams. So they decide to stop this train to hang out in this like podunk town, like halfway.
Yeah.
I think it was supposed to be kind of an inaugural thing, like the golden spike of the transcontinental railway.
Flood gets up and he starts blustering out a speech about when he was a boy, et cetera, et cetera. And the gang, I guess, for the lack of a better word, set up in like this weird, I thought it was like a bathroom rest area thing. I couldn't really tell. I think it might have been like a visitor center.
I thought it was like the station that they were at, just like the main station building.
Yeah.
But anyway, everyone is gathered outside. Mike ducks into the restrooms and then ends up in this big area somehow. The guy in the shades follows in behind him.
And happens upon Cindy struggling with the suitcase.
Another giant steamer trunk. There's a lot of big steamer trunks. And she gives the most terrible excuse. She's like, oh, can you help me? I need to get this thing open so I can put on a costume for this clam bake. Do you want to see me in a costume?
I can't get my suitcase open. Can you get my suitcase open? I can't do it.
Yeah, I guess it's because it's the 70s. Men are stupid enough to believe that women are stupid enough to not know how suitcases work. But this guy's like, yeah, okay, the hot lady, I will help you with your suitcase. He immediately just opens it and she's like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, because there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a suitcase.
Yeah.
And then Rick and Mike come out and just clobber the crap out of him.
They shove him in the suitcase, lock it shut, and the Scooby Gang collectively high fives and celebrates their victory over Shades Man, who they leave at the station.
But it turns out Shades guy was just suspicious looking, not suspicious doing.
Yeah, he was just a salesman who was excited to go to LA, and he left all of his samples on the train, and he was super upset that he could not get back on the train and all of his samples.
My samples are on that train. My samples. It was pretty great. He really sold that. I was chuckling pretty darn good.
But they don't know this. They think, triumph. Everything's fine now. Everything's good. We're just gonna go and hang out and it'll be a good time.
Yeah, but then Mike makes a phone call to Big Eddie, the guy that he owes money to, and tells him that I'll definitely have the money for you, but I had to throw your dude off the train. Oh, what's that? You didn't have a dude on the train. You don't operate like that.
I guess you take a organized crime head at their word when they say, that's not how we work. If I wanted to hurt you, I would hurt you in different ways.
I mean, it kind of sounds like he was giving him the same, like, if I kill you, you can't pay me back, so.
This does not sit well with Mike Post.
At this point, we get the cut back to the station. We kind of jumped ahead there, but yeah.
Yeah, we learned that the dude was not an assassin and that there is still a killer on the loose on Supertrain.
He makes a trip to the bar, and then as he's heading back to his room from that, he gets knocked out and thrown into the pool.
His friend's real drunk at this point. He's drinking at the bar with bartender guy who I think was the one lifting before. And he's just plowed. He's like, ugh. Hey, Mike, what are you doing? You've been swimming there for a long time. And the bartender turns around and he's like, I think that guy's drowning.
And they managed to get him out and CPR him back to life just in the nick of time.
Things are very scary for Mike at this point.
But yeah, even after someone knocks him out and throws him into the pool, the staff is still refusing to believe someone's trying to kill him.
Yeah, it's Supertrain. It's rich people. Rich people don't do anything bad.
It's the maiden voyage. People get a little murdery on the maiden voyage.
Things kind of start coming to a head when his boss makes him go and try to keep his friend away from this director.
Because his wife had been out later than he thinks she should have been, dancing and stuff. And so that got him to shouting.
So his friend and his wife meet up and she's like, oh, are you mad? And he's like, nah, you just did what you had to do. And she's like, okay, I don't know what that means, but, and they're where the director that Mike's boss is trying to court is currently at the table doing his high rolling thing. And his friend comes up and he's like, hey, I am angry at you for messing with my wife.
Hey, guess what? Punch in the face.
Yep, just socks him. All hell breaks loose.
They go through a tunnel. There's a scuffle. Everything goes dark.
Mike's there, there's things going on, and then when they emerge from this very convenient tunnel, one of the movie guys ends up like in Mike's arms, and he's like, hey buddy, what's going on? And then there's this big knife coming out of his back.
Yeah.
And Mike immediately just like grabs the knife with his hand and is like, oh, that's a knife. Let's go.
Yeah. After that, word starts filtering through the train that, something happened and one of the Hollywood people got killed. They stopped the train to get the body off. And Cindy believes it might have been Mike that got killed.
She's really upset. She's crying. Her husband hears that maybe the Hollywood guy, Mike Post, got killed. And he's like kind of stoked about it.
Weirdly ecstatic. Happily ordering breakfast. Happily, shoutily ordering breakfast.
We kind of glossed over it, but at some point, Cindy came home late after hanging out with Mike and his buddy, and her husband saw them together and was not happy about it, and he hit her. So at this point, there's active abuse, and she's just like trying to play it off and diminish, but she's weeping over Mike, who at that point had tried to kiss her. He like walked her home.
I think they actually kissed. He was walking her home, and then someone came through the door behind her, and then knocked them closer together, and then they just had a moment, and then they kissed.
Yeah, and then he immediately, quote unquote, died, and so she was heartbroken. And then her asshole of a husband's like, "You look like garbage. Go to the salon and get your hair fixed." She's like tears streaming down her face.
Yeah,
and she's like, "All right." All right. And then immediately runs into Mike in the hall.
Yeah.
When they stopped the train to take the body off, a FBI agent got on board.
Yeah, he's investigating, and he runs the name Mike Post through the system and comes back that the Treasury has someone named Mike Post in witness protection for ratting out the mafia.
After Mike and Cindy's little meet cute, whatever, Mike has another interaction with the FBI agent, which is very terrible. Mike's in his cabin. The FBI agent comes in. He's like, Mike Post. And he's like, yes. What's your real name, Mike Post? And he's like, my name is Mike Post. Let me show you my ID. And he's like, okay, we're going to play this game.
You're a weird one, Mike Post.
And Mike Post is confused, but the FBI agent is like, okay, whatever. Protect your secrets. I don't care. We need to get you off this train. Otherwise, you'll get killed. So at the next stop, meet me in the baggage car. We'll get you off.
That does not go according to plan.
Nope, because Mike runs into Cindy again.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, Cindy, I know your man is bad. Run away with me. You can leave him. Please, just meet me in the baggage car later. We gotta go. I'll be your ticket out because I have feelings for you, even though we just met less than 36 hours ago.
Run away with me. And she says, I have to tell him I'm leaving him by myself.
I have to confront the man solo. Mike, I'll meet you there.
And that goes about as well as you'd expect it to, unfortunately.
This guy is super emotionally manipulative, and he basically guilts her into staying with him. And after she doesn't meet up with Mike, Mike comes to their cabin and is like, hey, Cindy, you coming along? And she's like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I can't go with you, Mike. And he's like, okay, but I gotta go. I gotta go to the baggage car. Things get a little, they go 0 to 60 very fast for Cindy's husband, Jack. He's kind of has a shit-eating grin on his face as his wife rejects Mike Post. And he's like, ha ha ha, I have triumphed. And then he asks her sort of offhand, well, what's so special about the baggage car? She's like, oh, well, the FBI guy's gonna take him off the train and he'll be gone. And that sets off Mike Post, or not Mike Post, because he's not Mike Post, but he is Mike Post. Jack, her husband.
We find through some dropped documents that were given to him by the Treasury Department, Jack's alias is Mike Post. He then also retrieves a gun.
Yeah, he has a gun and this new ID, and she sees kind of this going on, and she's like, what's going on, Jack? What are you going to go do? And he immediately just locks her in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And thus begins Jack's kind of unmotivated rampage.
Yeah, which is really funny because when real Mike gets to the baggage area, FBI guy is dead on a shelf. And the actual beloved assassin, who turns out to be played by Fred the Hammer Williamson, the former football player who moonlights as a hitman, is waiting for him.
And then there's this whole like, well, we could have been friends, Mike, but, you know, I got to do this job. And Mike's like, why are you trying to kill me? And he's like, are there any other Mike Posts on this train?
And Mike Post, being the only Mike Post that he knows of, shrugs and prepares to die. I mean, tries to tackle him.
In appropriately evil villain style, the hitman first opens the door to the moving baggage car and is like, okay, dump the body of the FBI agent out the door, and then you go next, or I'll shoot you. And Mike Post, to his credit, he dumps the body, is very scared, but does not go willingly into the night.
He makes a go of trying to take down his attacker.
At the same time, Jack appears in the doorway as these two are tussling, and Mike Post jumps on the assassin's back, and they both go tumbling out the door. And Jack's like, I didn't even have to shoot anybody.
No guns required. But yeah, Mike managed to hold on to something on the outside.
Yeah, like a ladder railing thing. And he's just out there screaming for like 2 minutes solid.
Somehow Jack notices. He gets outside of the train too and starts chasing him along the top.
Yeah, at this point, I don't really know what Jack is doing. Like, I know he hates this guy for, like, trying to steal his wife and whatever, but is this a Highlander situation where he's like, there can be only one Mike Post?
Well, I think the idea is that, well, basically, I'll get to that. So they have the chase. Mike lands on the window to one of the populated areas where Sir Hammerlock happens to be. And we get the payoff for some foreshadowing earlier where the conductor was saying, I can totally redline the shit out of this thing. As Hammerlock calls up the conductor, and his brilliant plan to save the man on the outside is to redline the shit out of this thing.
Everyone's like, stop the train. There's a guy out there. We need to save him. And Mike's buddy is like, my friend's out there. And this guy with a gun's chasing him. Stop the train. But Hammerlock's like, nope. No one stops this train.
We're doing the opposite of stopping.
He's like, I'm going to make the most dangerous call because I'm a senior citizen and my bones are not made out of glass. They redline the train and everything just goes to shit real fast.
Yeah, everything gets thrown to the back. It's the ridiculous speed scene from Spaceballs, pretty much.
Everyone's pushed into their seats. Up on top of the car, there's kind of a James Bond-esque thing going on where Mike is clinging desperately to the roof while Jack is like crawl forward to get him, shooting at him constantly with his gun. But eventually, the ridiculous speeds are too much for Jack, and he goes hurtling through the air, crashing through the window into the lounge.
Yeah, they kill him with ridiculous speeds.
Someone in the bridge finally decides, okay, we got to stop this freaking train. And then they stop the train.
Yeah, they hit the emergency stop after going like full faster than the train is rated for.
Yeah, people don't understand how train work in this. Like, they would have immediately derailed. But yeah, Jack's dead. There's a trail of bodies, and Mike is kind of like catatonically clutching to the roof of this thing while everyone is trying to sort through the pieces.
Everybody gets brought back in. The train makes it to LA. Mike is fired, but he finds out from the people at the Bureau that Jack was the one who fed them the name Mike Post that he wanted. So I think his idea was that that identity would get leaked. They would send an assassin after Mike Post. Mike Post, the real one, would be killed, and then he wouldn't have to worry about anyone coming after him because they would think Mike Post is dead.
Yeah, it's still very convoluted because he could have just picked another identity, I guess.
Like, unless he knew for sure that it was going to get leaked somehow.
And it was, I guess, so sure. But yeah, Cindy finds Mike in all sorts of rough shape, but she reunites with him and they disembark the train together. Sir Hammerlock is kind of jazzed that they got to go super fast, but he's upset that their unbreakable windows were not indeed unbreakable.
He has that moment. We were informed that these windows are rated as unbreakable.
Yeah. In LA, Mike, his buddy, and Cindy get off the train together. Mike's fired because he was not able to prevent any of this nonsense from happening. His friend and his wife end up reconciling, and so they go off together.
And they end up hiring Mike. And they hop into a taxi, and then Big Eddie shows up.
Big Eddie's like, hey, Mike, you need to pay me. Mike's like, I just got a job, and so I could theoretically pay you back. And Big Eddie's like, I want cash right now. And Mike's basically shitting himself in the middle of LAX, or not LAX, whatever the LA train station is called. And Cindy comes up and wearing a big fur coat with a suitcase, and she's like, Mikey, how much money do these guys want?
They did the whole bit where he's like, a lot. And she's like, how much is a lot? 40,000.
She just casually opens her suitcase. It's filled with stacks of bills. And she's like, each one of these stacks, I think, is like 10,000. So here you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. There. And Mike's like, oh, quickly shuts the briefcase and is like, see you around, Eddie. And they hop in the taxi and then they drive off.
Yep, there's a proposal and a lot of kissing, and credits on the first episode. There's a brief tie-up to the Noonan granddaughter thing. She wants to make a round trip and has specifically requested that he attend to all of her personal needs.
Sir Hammerlock himself says that, implicitly saying, I want you to service my granddaughter.
He gives him the look like, I know what she's saying, and I want you to do it too.
Supertrain pilot episode. Wild.
Yeah, not super complicated. I mean, it was pretty easy to follow even when I wasn't watching half the time.
There are probably too many characters. The whole film staff side plot was too much. There's too many other side characters. But fundamentally, it was a pretty fun plot.
Yeah, the rest of them are a lot lighter in characters. I think they just wanted to go all out for the pilot. But yeah, it's really kind of a comfort foodie kind of show, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, things kind of reset back to the initial starting conditions, and the train drops off its passengers and picks up some new ones and new stories and goes forward from there. I enjoyed the first episode. I don't know if I loved it, but it was fun in a lot of ways. The music was great.
Yeah, if I could find a higher quality transfer, I'd probably watch it again.
I will insert some of the music into this episode because the audience you need to hear. If you haven't heard it yet, you will hear it now because I love the Supertrain theme song.
It's pretty great. Yeah, and I guess the only other thing is, did you have a favorite episode?
So I only watched one other episode, but I can tell you immediately it is my favorite episode because it is starring Dick Van Dyke as a hitman.
Yes. Sometimes we're on the same length, so I had like a couple picked out for my favorite, and I was like that was going to be my backup if you picked the one I had. Yeah, a cup of kindness.
Yeah, it like. The quick summary of that episode is that like some random high-powered business dude sees a stranger slumped over in a train station, rescues him while everyone else passes by, and the stranger's like, I gotta pay you back. And like, what's going on in your life? And the guy's like, oh, I'm getting a divorce, and my wife's getting on Supertrain, and I think this is the end. And he's like, well, you don't know what you got till it's gone, so you want me to murder your wife? Oh, I'm just joking. Just joking. But if I were a hitman, would you want me to murder your wife? And he's like, no. He's like, okay, so you said you want me to murder your wife. I'm going to go murder your wife. And he's like, no. And then as he's seeing his wife off, he sees Dick Van Dyke get on the train, and then the entire rest of the episode is Dick Van Dyke creeping on his wife, like trying to like insinuate himself in every aspect of her Supertrain experience, buying her a bathing suit and like swimming with her and like being super creepy. all to get this guy to freak out and go on this cross-country wild chase to try to get on the super train in time to save his wife from this murder, and nothing actually happens because it was all just a scam. And Dick Van Dyke's like, well, I could have killed her, but now you know how much you actually love her, and so you two kids go have a good honeymoon in California. And then he runs the scam again in Chicago and meets a new Good Samaritan to basically Tyler Durden into his life.
Yeah, they kind of imply that he was only implying that he was a hitman and he wasn't actually. I want to believe that he was actually a hitman and he probably would have killed the wife if the husband hadn't shown up.
Yeah, because he was super creepy.
Oh, yeah, and it's really weird because it's Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah, it's a great... There's a lot about, like, creepy, murderous-looking Dick Van Dyke, who also takes off his shirt, and he looks really good for being as old as he is. Like,
yeah.
Dick Van Dyke, hello. But there's also a weird B-plot about these, like, horrible children that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it's the great-grandkids of Sir Hammerlock, and they're just horrible, horrible children who light off fireworks in the swimming pool, and they set someone's dress on fire.
Yeah. And
it's just basically the B-plot is children are evil.
Yeah, children are evil, and they sometimes interrupt Dick Van Dyke's murder plots, which are not actually murder plots. They're just creepy plots. But yes, that was my favorite episode. Thankfully, it was the only other episode I watched, so it ended up being my favorite anyway, because that was genuinely a really good episode.
I had a couple that I really liked. My main one that I picked that I was afraid you were going to go for was Hail to the Chief. It's got this really interesting spin on the whole good twin, evil twin trope. The basic story is there's an A-plot. There's a senator running for president, and he's established pretty quickly to be like a two-faced asshole. He is a liar, and he drinks, and he cheats on his wife, and he's in bed with, big business and stuff. And the B-plot seems to be some kind of heist that's going on, but you find out that one of the people involved in the heist is actually the twin of Senator Evilman, and he set up this thing so that they would kidnap the senator, and he would take his place and either sabotage the presidential campaign, or if he got elected, then step down immediately so the vice president, who was actually a decent person, would become president, because he ran away from home because of how evil his twin was. So when he saw on TV that he was running for president, he knew what kind of damage the guy could do if he got into office. So he orchestrates this super elaborate kidnapping scheme to stop that from happening. But he ends up falling in love with his twin's wife, and that's pretty much it. I mean, that works. There's a series of fortuitous happenstance where he gets away from his They think they're going to ransom the senator for $10 million, so he's got to figure out a way to carry out his not-so-evil master plan and get them off his back without getting killed.
Supertrain.
Yeah. There are a few guest stars that I think people might recognize. Mako, the voice for Uncle from Avatar: The Last Airbender, was in an episode as a chauffeur turned kidnapper. Tony Danza, Ruba Clanahan, and I believe the Doctor is played by Alan Alda's dad.
Wow. We talked about how this was an expensive show, but we never really mentioned how expensive it was. I think, up until recently, it was, the most expensive television show ever made.
It's apparently widely regarded as one of the biggest flops. They spent $10 million total on models of the trains by themselves, separate from the rest of the production costs.
It's wild. They spent a bunch of money on all of the different guest stars. People got $50,000 for showing up a couple times. They blew money left and right constantly.
Yeah, Zsa Zsa Gabor was in an episode. I'm kind of glad it ended. The very last episode, they decided to add a laugh track, which was really bad. It wasn't a terrible episode, but I would have hated to have seen what happened if they tried to keep going with it. They really kind of wrote themselves into a corner by having the show focus on the guests and not the employees.
I would have liked to see a little bit more of the employees because they're the fixed things around which everything else revolves, right?
Yeah.
It's great that you can Twilight Zone little vignettes in there, but at least have a underlying plot that runs through everything where like maybe Supertrain is like trying to get bought out by their Supertrain competitors or something along those lines that just drives some of the motivations for the secondary characters.
That's really, it was just an untapped resource that they never really used. They did a cast shakeup, I think, around episode 7 or 8, where the character of Ted Noonan got replaced. And the only episode where there was some kind of train trouble that they had to fix was just sort of a character building moment instead of like the inciting incident for the episode, which is kind of a wasted opportunity, honestly.
Yeah. It's a fun show. I just wish that we could have found a better quality version.
Yeah.
You can tell that they spent a lot of money on the sets. You can tell that they spent a lot of money on the models, on the actors and everything, and it's kind of a shame to not be able to see them in the quality they were intended to be seen.
I mean, there might be some hope. It's maybe still in NBC Universal's vaults. They might throw it up on their streaming service or something if anyone ever digs it out. I don't know. But I really hope they do. I'd love to see like any kind of better quality transfer of this, because the plots are easy enough to follow without the visual, but it's almost distractingly bad if you're trying to pay attention to it.
Yeah, I had a really hard time like settling into it because it was so hard to watch.
Other than that, it's just a fun, comfort foodie show. If you can find a good quality transfer, but if you happen to know someone who, I don't know, recorded the episodes on good quality VHS, you can borrow and go for it. It's not a bad time.
I would definitely recommend it. I wonder how expensive it would be to buy the rights to Supertrain these days.
I can't imagine it'd be very much.
Like how much money do I want to spend to own a Supertrain and to make Supertrain spin-offs? Like, how cool would it be to make like a Supertrain series of video games or something?
I don't know, what would that even be? Would you be driving the train, or would you be running it as a business, like a sim theme park kind of deal?
That would be a really interesting thing. I would think it would just be like an episodic murder mystery. Like Murder on the Orient Express or something like that.
Yeah.
Because that's what a lot of these episodes end up being anyway, right?
Yeah, they do a lot of the train tropes. Pregnant woman locked in a room, person held for ransom, kidnapping. There's at least 3 different episodes with hitmen.
They just don't have like regular things happen on this train.
Something's always afoot.
It's kind of a wonder they still let this thing operate, to be honest.
That was Supertrain. Kate, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and TikTok as Army of Me. And where can people find you, Sky?
You can find me on Twitter at shard_corso, SHARD_CORSO. If you have any suggestions for the show, you can drop them at our Twitter at interestingchoice6, INTRESTINGCHOI6. If you'd like to support the show, we also have a Patreon now, interestingchoices.patreon. You can listen to it at Spreaker.com/show/interesting-choices, or just go to Spreaker and search Interesting Choices.
Thanks for listening to us ramble on about an atomic-powered steam train of the future.
Atom-powered steam turbine.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.